So I make a motion that we open the meeting.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so first of all, I want to thank Ralph Dormitzer for joining us. Ralph is the liaison to the Water Commission from the Capital Budget Committee. We appreciate you being here, Ralph. Thanks for taking the time to join us. One thing we're discussing today is our budget for fiscal year 2023, and our plan is to make a presentation to the Capital Budget Committee on that. So Ralph, if you have any thoughts as we discuss this, as how best we can present, please let us know.
Well, thank you, John. I appreciate that. As you know, our role is really limited, principally to make sure that your income and your expenses match up well enough, and that in fact you can afford your future capital expenditures. So ours is very limited. So ours is just to make sure that any obligations that the water department cannot fill do not fall on the town as a whole. That's kind of it. So
okay, that's an important role. And what my thought right now is, once the capital budget meeting is scheduled, I'm hoping to attend. I think Lee's going to probably plan to attend, and Steve may as well. Jason and Don are also, I think, planning to attend. And my thought would be is that Don would do an overview of financials. Jason would then discuss specifics on our capital budget plans. And then I would be there, and I believe Lee and possibly Steve to answer any questions capital budget has for the water commissioners.
That sounds very good. That's precisely what we would want. And I think the only thing you might want to think about is, if there's a projection, how does it look? Is it updated since you last had this projection that Jason had given to us? So that's the only other thing that I think about. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks again, Ralph, for joining us. And in discussing our budget at our last meeting, some emotions got a little bit high. I mean, we disagree on some things, but everyone's here just trying to do what they think is best for the water department, for the town. So I'm hoping we can discuss it. Everyone can be civil and keep it not personal, and just try to keep the facts. And we may disagree, and that's fine. But I know we're all here trying to do our best. So I'd like to ask Don if you could start with discussing financials.
Morning, everybody.
Good morning, Don.
So I'll hit a quick update, actually very similar to December. We are at 57.7% of our revenues collected to date. 65.5% of that is our actual user charges. And a whopping 375% is our connection fees, again, because of the Fiscal project. All other revenues seem to be in okay shape. And then on the expenditure side, our general expenses are at 47.7% of the budget spent to date. So I think overall we're continuing to be in good shape in the water department.
Thanks. Lee, do you have any questions for Don?
No, we just have to wait to see what's going to happen in the next two quarters, how we're doing. Because I also noticed you said that we're 65.5%, Don, for our water usage.
Yep.
Okay, but that also, okay, that looks good. Thank you.
Okay. All right, now we're going to talk about the next budget item, fiscal year 2023 budget. We spent quite a bit of time discussing this last time. And again, I want to thank Lee and Brenda for spending a lot of time on doing this, putting together an initial budget. Don and Jason, I know, have all spent a lot of time working on it to try to get it just right. And there were two issues we were all going to think some more about from our last meeting. The first was there was a conservative projection of I think, -7% in user charges. And then there was the indirect costs, whether those should be decreased. I've given a lot of thought to it since our last meeting. I think based upon our rate study, in my view, and again, I'd like to open up the discussion, is that we should project the 2.5% increase in user fees as the rate study projects. If we were to do the 7% decrease, which is a conservative number, that would not give us sufficient funds, at least in our budget, to meet our capital budget items, which would create an issue. So my view is we would go with a 2.5% increase unless anyone felt that was unrealistic. And then on the indirect costs, two items were, one, whether we reduced Jason's time from 70% to 50. And then
Excuse me, it was 60%. It was
Oh,
only a
70
10% increase.
Okay, 70 to 60. I'm sorry, Lee. And then the other was whether 10 hours a week was a reasonable estimate for the finance department doing our billing. Since that time, we've gotten a response from the finance department as to why they think 10 hours is appropriate. I've reviewed that. I'm satisfied with the response we received. And I also think Jason's adding tons of value, and I think 70% is still a good estimate as far as what we pay of his salary and benefits. So I open this up to discussion for everyone's thoughts and input.
Okay, well, the thing that has been bothering me is Ralph is very familiar with these terms, policies and procedures, because we've discussed these ad nauseum through the years in the town. And also looking through management letters, terms like reconciliation, accountability, and fair share are always brought up. And we're supposed to be having a reconciliation according to the management letters every year. We've never gotten that with our indirect costs and the accountability. And what I appreciate getting Paula to send us that email, but it really doesn't indicate what exactly she's doing. Being in business myself and being, let's say, one of the relics in the room, having started business in the old days when everything was done manually and going into the tech age, I just can't understand how she is saying that with everything that is basically done electronically, that she even insinuated that 10 hours wasn't enough to do the work. And, you know, from my perspective, being in business, as I said, it takes less time to do a lot of this work because of all the technology involved. And you're not dealing with cash or checks as much as you were. People are paying either through their bank or they're paying through their credit card through the online service. So I don't really feel that we got a reconciliation in this, and this is where I stand. About Jason, you know, I realize Jason has given us a lot of good input through the time he's been here with us, but taking a look at what is going on in the harbor, I feel as though his time is going to be impressed more on the town side than on our side. But that's my opinion.
Thanks, Lee. I appreciate your thoughts. Don, do you have any comments or responses to that?
The only comment I have is the management letter that may be referred to is not any current management letter. We don't have any management letter issues except for there's a recommendation to update or document internal control systems that we have. The town, even before I got here, cleared up all of those prior issues. So the reconciliation point isn't valid. And that was more geared towards reconciling, I'm sure, of cash, receivables, and other things like that. Not a reconciliation of your indirect cost allocation. So that's the only point I want to make, is that the management letter is clean. There aren't any issues of reconciliations. I think what you're referring to is just, the committees coming to an agreement with the finance department on indirect costs. And that's all I'll say. Otherwise, if you guys, whatever you propose, I'm not going to keep fighting. It looks like we have a $159,000 number in there right now based on some changes. If that's where you guys want to move, send me what you made changes for, so I have an updated allocation going forward. But we can't keep wasting time, I think, going back and forth on this. So if you have some changes that agree to that 159 or whatever's in this budget, I'm ready to just squash this and try to get clean going forward, if that's going to help.
One other comment too on everything being electronic, just so everybody understands, when you pay a bill with your bank online, the town gets a hard check in the mail, and then the treasurer collector's office has to process that check. It's not a direct deposit electronic process. They get a physical check in the mail. I know because I end up getting the mail a lot of times for Brenda, and those checks come in as physical checks, not electronic.
Right, and to that point, they still, so the money might come in electronically or in that check, but then it has to still be posted to the correct billing account. So you get $10,000 for real estate and your water or sewer bills, or however it's coming in. It just doesn't, a button isn't pressed and automatically everything's allocated. I mean, there is, for every IT related electronic service, there is still the back end work that needs to be done. So,
All right, thank you, Don. And then I would just comment on the point of Jason's time. I sympathize and I understand Jason's pulled in lots of different directions. And he's doing different things other than just water. Many towns have a water superintendent in which they're dedicated 100% of their time to the water department. Like us, they have an outside contractor running the water department. We have Word and Curran. Hingham, for example, then has a water superintendent that they spend 100% of their time kind of overseeing that for the town of Hingham. They're a town of Hingham employee. We're very fortunate, I feel, to have Jason. I do understand that he's doing other things, but I feel his role is very important, and I think 70% is reasonable. I think, Lee, we may not agree on this, and Steve unfortunately can't be here. So I would suggest that what we do is wait until Steve can join us later in the meeting to take a vote on these items. Or if Steve's not able to join us, we set up another brief meeting just on these items to take a vote. And that's the reason we have 3 water commissioners, because if there's a disagreement, then there's a vote. And there's been times when I've had an opinion and you and Steve have disagreed with me, and that's completely fine. That's the way we're set up. That's why we have an odd number of commissioners. So unless there's any, I don't think we agree, Lee, on this unless.
Right. Okay. I just have one question for Don. I know, so I've been going through a lot of old paperwork, and I didn't realize that if a management letter came out and it said specifically you were supposed to reconcile the indirect cost every year with the water department, that if it's not being done now, that if it was recommended 6 years ago, that it's moot now?
so if you could send me that paperwork, I'd be happy to look at it and comment then.
Well, you have
I'm
it
not
online.
aware.
You looked it up.
I can't pull it up right this second, but can you tell me what fiscal year that is, at least, so I don't have to go on a goose chase?
Let's see. I think it probably was either 14 or 16.
Okay.
One other point you
But
made, John.
yeah, but to answer that, yeah, I mean, once something is resolved, it doesn't go back on the management letter. So at one point, we must have been in agreement with the indirect costs. I'm assuming, and at times, not always a bet, but management letter comments can come out of things like this when there are departments not agreeing. that sometimes the management letter comments are crafted to try to help move things along. So if back in 14 and to 16, this was happening with my predecessors, maybe that's why it got in there. But I don't know.
Well, I don't know. But the costs were considerably less back in those days.
I can't answer that. I was not here. So
I know.
One other comment to John's piece. I agree with you, John, that we should be increasing the water use charge by 2.5%. We're at 67%, Don, is that what you said, on collections this year? And we had a bad summer, so.
we're at 65. I mean, yeah. So in theory, we should, because that's part of the study. I mean, if it felt strongly to be conservative, we could forego that 2.5% one more year. I mean, but again, that's up to the commission to decide. I agree to be consistent. If we're increasing our rate by 2.5%, all things being equal, that 2.2 number should increase by 2.5%. If we're assuming the same consumption budget in 22 to 23, the increase in the rate should be increased. But again, right now we have a balanced budget with the 2.29. It just adds an extra level of conservatism if that's really what the concern is, but we're just not really following the 2.5% that we set out to do.
Lee, how do you
Okay,
feel
well-
about,
to the commission to make that decision?
Okay, from my perspective, I just wanted to give the rate study a time to gel, shall we say, to see how it really worked out in the first year, rather than say, okay, here, we're going to go with this and have greater expectations than we might see. That was why I was being conservative. And as I said in the last meeting, I would prefer to have a retained earnings rather than a loss, because I'm still a little leery about how much tier 3 is going to bring in. And now I just wanted to give it time to play out. But if you feel as though you want to go with the 2.5% increase, fine with me.
okay,
But then Brenda, she's going to have to redo all the numbers.
okay. So I think we have agreement on that. So at least on that part of the budget, I'm gonna make a motion that we go ahead with the 2.5% increase on the budget. Is there a second to the motion?
Okay, I second.
All in favor? Aye,
Aye. And then Brenda's going to have to work up the numbers, so I don't think we can really see them right now.
right. So
Because
the
we have
only
to-
outstanding issue then is indirect costs.
Mhm.
And I think we disagree on that, Lee. Is that fair to say? We should wait for Steve or?
I think so.
Okay. All right. So anything else on the fiscal 2023 budget?
Can I just clarify for a second?
Sure.
So I'm just increasing the user charges by 2.5%,
Just that one line.
just that one line. Okay, that's what I thought.
I would say the offset, again, because everything's balanced, should be related to capital.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All right. Thanks, everyone. That was productive discussion. I appreciate everyone's thoughts.
Hey,
Elms met,
I have-
okay.
Excuse me, I have one other question here. So we totally tabled about looking at tier 2 for the town and the school. Is that correct, even though we had voted to do it twice? So it's totally gone now? Because I
Well,
know the school has problems. I know even though the town gave them a 3% increase in their budget, they're considerably behind in their salaries because of their 10% increases. And I know they lost 50 students, but had to add another teacher, and they had to spend $45,000 to park the buses outside of Cohasset and Situate and pay a developer. But the 24,000 that we were looking for, we're tabling that maybe for another year.
That's my view, but if you and Steve feel differently, then we will not table it. So we may want to wait for Steve on that, Lee. I think we'd have to do another rate study or at least go to town meeting on that because
Could I
That
ask
was-
why? Sorry, Joe, I'm just wondering, so if we're balanced now, what is the purpose of going to the tier 2 at this point?
Well,
Or
because
considering it?
I'm looking at my fiduciary responsibilities and with some of my ratepayers, because I know our ratepayers weren't getting 10 to 12.5% raises in their salaries over the last year, and they are suffering. So I'm just looking for ways to kind of spread out the cost and
Right,
maybe
and
give us
just
a little more income. That's all.
to be clear, the schools, we're trying to get to the bottom of where their budget really needs to be. They came in at 6% versus the 3 we have. The 10% increase is a handful, maybe 5. I forget the number. I counted them because of the way contractual obligations are. If you go from a master's 30 to a master's 60 or whatever that is, everybody at the school is not getting a 10% raise. So I just want to make that clear so that the public understands that is a handful of people. And again, to add another 24,000, that's up for you to decide and for you guys to really market that to the public as to why we need that. And when we're balanced now and going up another 2.5% on our estimate is another $57,000. I don't see the need, but again, up to you guys.
Yes, well, as I said, it's just a matter of spreading the cost so that, the taxpayer don't have to, or the ratepayers don't have to share the entire cost. And, this is what we've looked at through the years. This is why we went ahead and we put in the unmetered unit charge. We put in the installation of the well field. I know that didn't bring in a lot of cash. And then we were proactive in putting the antennas on the water tanks because we're just looking at other income. So it's not a total burden on our ratepayers who are not the town is not comprised of all ratepayers, as we know, because we have sections of the town that are on other water systems or on wells. And this is all I'm trying to do. And think about other sources of income, because we do have a lot coming up on our plate. And with the way the economy is going, we might be seeing increases in what we presume we were spending. So, it's just a fiscal idea on my part. As Ben Franklin said, a penny saved is a penny earned. So, if we can save and get more money in, 24,000 a year, it's 100,000 over 4. Plus there's the town. What is the town? 6,000. So we're looking at possibly 30,000 a year. I know it's nothing, but it's something.
Okay, I think for that
yep.
discussion, Lee, I'd prefer to wait till Steve joins us.
Sure.
But thank you for bringing that up. Elms, Meadow, and Whitney crossing update.
Yes, good morning. Not much of an update for Elms Meadow. We are currently waiting on 2 months worth of PFAS results. They should come in the next few weeks. The most recent validated Elms Meadow PFAS number was from as far back as September, and it was a 17.6. And Whitney Crossing, currently our true up is 4.9 million gallons behind, but since the beginning of the year, we have reduced that 400,000 gallons. So in the last 2 months, we gained 400,000 gallons on the true up, which is currently at 4.9 million gallons. And Woodard and Curran is in the process of implementing hypochlorite addition there, which would enable us to run 24/7 without the concern of any coliform bacteria hits. So once that's up and running, which could take a couple more months, we'll be able to reduce that true up much more quickly than we currently are.
Any questions, Lee?
Jonathan, yeah, I have a question. Usually during the summer months, we reduce it more quickly because a higher water consumption that Hingham uses, and they ask us for more water. But you're saying until we get the other system installed, we won't be able to be producing a lot more water, giving a lot more water to them?
No, I'm just suggesting that there will be a significant increase in what we're able to give them once that's online.
Okay,
I'm not saying current operations are any different than previous years, except that once hypochlorite is implemented, we will be able to give them significantly more water.
okay, thank you. I have a question about Elms Meadow. Now, we basically tabled really looking into any mitigation to reopen at this point because of the cost.
Yes.
Yes. And what was the cost?
Hold on
Do you
one
remember?
second. I'll pull up the report. Hold on.
Well, we could probably move on while you're looking for that, Jason, and you can report it to us before the end of the meeting.
$382,000.
382, okay. And that wasn't for a GAC, was it?
There was 390 as GAC, 382 was ion exchange.
Okay,
And that's just the cost to install. It doesn't include the treatment cost annually.
right.
There's
Okay,
another
thank you.
$32,000 in annual cost.
Okay, the Bear Hill tank lease for T-Mobile.
That building permit has been approved and they're working on their material purchasing for installation.
Sludge removal.
Excuse me, was there a
Go ahead,
date?
Lee.
Was there a date that they were presuming to be finished?
Not that they've told me.
Okay,
Sludge.
So the update is kind of the twofold update here. The first update is, and Jonathan and Fred chime in as far as the current status of the existing. We have our draft RFP. We're hoping to issue this week to vendors for the removal process. We've run into an issue. Bourne last year was taking 2 loads a day. This year, they're only going to take 1. So last year it took 20 days, 40 loads to empty the bag. So we're looking now at potentially a 40-day process. And in the meantime, Jonathan has reached out to all of the surface water plants in the area to see where they're sending their residuals. As well as we've reached out to the vendors we're soliciting bids from for alternate sources for hauling too. There's a couple of potentially promising locations that we're investigating as well. So that's the update on the current situation. So I guess if there's any questions associated with that, fire away.
That could
well,
be.
whoops, excuse me. I remember we were looking at New Hampshire, I think
We're looking at New
last year.
Hampshire, New York, Rhode Island, Middleborough.
We used to do Connecticut.
We're going everywhere. Any place that'll take it, we're calling. So we're doing our best to try and find alternative locations.
It's gonna be expensive, probably, right?
Eh, we're hoping we can do it for the same price as usual, but if we have to extend slightly into the next budget year, we will do that. And we'll deal with it next year.
Well, do you think the haulers, because of the price of the gasoline, will be charging quite a bit more?
I don't think you're going to see that. It's just going to be the fact that they're only hauling one load a day. So they used to do the rotation. They come, load a truck, bring it down, come back, load the truck, bring it down. Now what's he doing the rest of his day? Like it's kind of a logistical nightmare to an extent, as well as the loading cost. If you're only loading one truck a day and your equipment's sitting here for 40 days versus 20 days, I think that's going to be the bigger increase than the gas cost. Is the timeline cost. So that's going to be the bigger issue is going to be time, not gas, in my personal opinion.
Well, I was just thinking about the distance if we have to go.
Oh,
further.
1,000%. I mean, we have an option
Yeah.
where one of them is we're going to bring it to Plymouth and then it goes on a train to New York. So everything's on the table at this point. And the bid is based on trying to come up with the most economical option for the town, both in time spent on site and tipping fees. So say the tipping fee in Plymouth is $60 a ton versus 40 in Bourne, but they can get it done in 20 days and therefore their labor costs are lower, then there's a lot more moving parts in this year than there has ever been in the past. So we'll see how it goes. We'll keep you up to date on where we're at, but it's as Fred said the other day, it's giving him sleepless nights at this point. So we're doing our best to working here as a team to come up with the best option for this process.
Yeah, it's very much in progress, but we're almost every day we're on the phone or in contact with people who can help us out.
Yeah, we certainly appreciate Jason's support on this. He's been an integral part of trying to come up with solutions for this, so we do appreciate that.
Thank you, everyone.
So
this is a challenge. And I appreciate your work.
If we're good on that piece, I want to go into what we're potentially recommending out there as an expenditure out of our existing allocation for the we have the residual expansion money still. So I don't know how I found this, because that person that does those roll-off containers, but we're really investigating that option. So the big thing is our current issues are we have an inconsistent feed to the existing geo bags, and an inconsistent feed means that we get bad dewatering in the bag. Other big issue is the spring removal. Everything is on hold until the spring, and then it's a fire drill to figure out how to get rid of it, because you really can't do anything about it until we start getting results and whatnot. Disposal, as we talked about, is becoming an issue. Where can we get rid of it? Polymer dosing. So as we're inconsistently feeding to the bags, the polymer dosing is harder to tune in and get it correct. So what happens is you blind the bag, which means that water doesn't come out properly, or you get poor flock development, which then in turn blinds the bag, and you get poor dewatering. The other one is the long duration to achieve the results we need. We need to get through the freeze thaw cycle. We're getting some of that this year, but even that, we're only seeing like a couple inches of freeze thaw. So when the stuff freezes and thaws, it kind of turns into coffee grinds versus like a greasy clay. So we're still not even seeing a significant freeze thaw. And there's no real metric for the results until the springtime comes. So we don't really know what we've got until 9 months after we start the process. So to solve that, we're looking at putting in those roll-off containers. So the first step is we're going to take some sludge samples, send them to the vendor in Texas, and they will use that to select a polymer and determine the dosing rate for that polymer. Our goal would be to rent a 30-yard roll-off. The duration of the rental will be based on the performance we get. We're looking at no more than 3 months realistically. And 50% of the rental cost can be put towards a purchase in the end. We're going to purchase a new polymer feed system if you guys approve it. The goal there is to get a better controls on the polymer feed. If we don't dose correctly, there's kind of a window of a dose, and we're not getting to that window very well. So the goal is to better achieve the feed into the bag and or the roll-off container, both. It will improve both situations. The other piece is the Lagoon Mixer. So this came to light yesterday in a call we had with, thank you to Fred for bringing this resource, Greg Parks, to the table. He's a free resource from Woodard and Curran ops side. He's a guru in sludge. He's international guru of sludge. I learned more about how they make chicken nuggets than I want to, but he does everything from industrial wastewater to any kind of sludge. So he brought up this Lagoon Mixer option to help us get a more homogeneous feed into the bag or the roll-off. So I reached out to a vendor yesterday after that call. I talked to him again this morning. So we're looking to get some pricing on putting in a mixer into the Lagoon. And then if all works, the goal would be to purchase a new 40-yard roll-off at some point once we've determined that the process is working over the 3-month rental period. The benefits, again, the improved polymer feed operations. This will help the geobags as well to achieve better dewatering results. We're not getting very good results currently. And like these guys said yesterday, if you're feeding the polymer correctly into this roll-off container, as soon as you start feeding the sludge into the roll-off, you'll see clean water pouring out of the bottom, quote unquote, pouring out of the bottom of the thing. So that's our goal. And then we'll be able to sit. So these roll-off containers, basically, you pull them as they are. You can bring it to Bourne and dump it, and you bring it back. You wash off the membranes, and you're ready to refill it again. So it allows us to continuously process sludge and send it off site and not have this big, fire drill in the spring to get rid of everything. The cost of this, so we're looking to rent the 30-yard roll-off for piloting purposes. $6,000 rental cost. The biggest cost is actually the delivery and shipping it back. And we're going to purchase a new polymer feed system from this vendor, as well as hopefully purchase Lagoon mixers. That's just a budget. That's a ballpark cost based on discussions I had this morning. We're going to refine that cost. We're also looking at potentially a solar option for that. So that cost is to be determined as well. And then lastly, if all works well, the goal would be to buy at least one 40-yard roll-off. And if it works really well, potentially two. And then alternate between the two as we send stuff to Bourne. And then potentially eliminate the whole bag system in subsequent years, or just have it as a backup in case of emergency. So that's it in a nutshell. And if you have any questions, we're willing to listen to any questions you might have.
I have one, and that's all. Sounds awesome. That's great analysis and work, everyone. Thank you. You mentioned that if we do the rental of the 30-yard container, that if we decide to purchase it, 50% of the cost, I think, goes towards the purchase. Would it make sense to do the 40-yard right away if we get 50% of the purchase?
They don't rent the 40 yards. They only rent 30 yards.
Okay.
Good question.
I honestly, we had this discussion internally of, do we just buy a 40-yard roll-off and keep our fingers crossed that it works, versus paying the shipping, the $10,000 lost shipping cost back and forth of the other container. So that's kind of the underlying other question that we're kind of still leaning towards doing the rental, just because none of us want to be the person who bought the thing and it doesn't work. it's being used all over the place. Greg Parks says he uses it on wastewater scenarios all the time throughout the country. But I just don't want to be on the hook for like everybody saying, oh, Jason, you spent $50,000 on this roll-off container and it's now a piece of garbage in the back of the plant.
Okay, I have a couple questions about the 30-yard one. Could we possibly purchase that one?
Yes, we can. So that is an option. We purchase the 30-yard and don't pay to ship it back. That we had that discussion as well. That may be what we end up doing. Purchase the 30 and then buy another 40 if it's working very well.
Okay, because with the 48,000, that doesn't include the shipping, does it?
No, it does not.
Okay, and the other question here is, you said that when it returns, we have to rinse out the bag or the whatever.
Membrane.
Where can we dispose of that water?
It just goes back in the lagoon.
Does it? I mean, it doesn't have anything in it that DEP would say, no, you cannot put it in there.
It's in the lagoon. It's our sludge lagoon. It's
And
got
the sludge
sludge.
lagoon. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we just rinse it out. The rinse water would go into the sludge lagoon, and then we would refill it.
Okay. And what happens if Bourne isn't going to be accepting, if we're going on a monthly basis?
That's a $1 million
Big problem.
question. If Bourne doesn't accept, we're screwed in the spring too. So we have to find an alternative source. So Hingham currently uses Waste Solutions Inc. Jonathan, is that the name? They come and truck theirs monthly. So we just contract with them. And if they end up failing, I don't know. I mean, that's the nature of the business. I mean,
Yeah.
Hingham is currently trucking on a monthly basis, the same way we're proposing to do. So we just hire their vendor and take it to wherever they're taking it if Bourne decides not to take it.
Yeah, the volume of the sludge and the risk would be more distributed over the 12 months rather than condensed all in the spring. So we would just, we would be looking at other landfills if Bourne fell through.
The other benefit too to the more spread out is Bourne uses this as top material for their landfill, and there's more need for top material in the summer than in the winter. So there's more construction going on and more waste being developed in the summer. So they need more capping material over the course of the summer. So providing them loads when they need it more is a beneficial for them. I'm not saying it's going to be a slam dunk, but there's more benefit to them that way.
It also
Okay, now
might be
what were
a higher quality sludge than what we're currently coming up with in the spring.
What is the difference in the cost in our budget? Is it almost a wash? Is it going to be more expensive? Will we have to be readjusting?
It would be a wash realistically. It's just spreading the cost out over 12 months instead of a 3-month period to get rid of it. It may be even less because we're not paying. So as part of the process with the bags, we have to cut the bag open. Somebody has to come here with equipment, empty the lagoon, put it in a container, and then haul it to Bourne. So now we're filling the container and then it just gets hauled to Bourne. So the loading process would be eliminated by using this alternative. So there may actually be a decrease in cost, but I think that decrease in cost will be probably offset over time with the increase in disposal costs.
Yeah, it sounds interesting.
So can we move forward with this? Do you guys approve moving forward with this?
I do. Lee, how do you feel?
Yep. Sure. Why not? So it's going to be an initial cost of $11,300 to get started.
Plus the
the
polymer
rental?
feed. We're going to do the rental, the polymer feed system, and the Lagoon Mixer.
Okay. Now, what was that piece of equipment you were looking at in Florida for sludge?
That sludge thickener. So we reached out to the guy and he's still non-committal on actually getting rid of it. That disc filter. And that could still be use during the process. So where we, if we went through this process, where we would put that is we would actually bring the pipe that comes from the plant into the lagoon out of the ground. Prior to going into the lagoon, it would go through the disc filter to remove a bulk water and then go into the sludge lagoon. But at this point, there's been no commitment there. So that's why we're moving forward with alternative options, because we're really up against it now. There's actually, currently we are not in compliance with DEP the way we have the sludge right now. It's not contained. DEP approved it because it was an emergency last year due to the bag bursting. But we really need to try to get into compliance this year. And we see this as the best option to do that as we move forward.
Okay, and we have sufficient funds in our budget to cover this for,
We'll be using the sludge
Sludge.
residual expansion dollars for this because it is an expansion of the sludge residuals processing.
okay. And the other crazy question is, because we've been looking to expand the sludge lagoon and build another lagoon. With this process, we would not have to do that?
Correct. I don't think we'd ever do, if we're going to do more lagoons, it's going to be a wholesale redesign out there. It's not going to be anything close to what it looks like today. We've really come to that. There's been a lot of come to Jesus in the last 12 to 6 months on what's happening out back there. There's a lot of issues, a lot more issues than I think anybody realized out there. And we're trying to work to potentially, it might a short-term, potentially long-term solution. But there's some issues out there that we're trying to address with this process that we're implementing now.
Well, I remember when Woodard and Kern first came on board, we moved to have the sludge processing done in-house. And that seemed to help in the beginning years until things kind of got crazy in the last 3 to 4 years.
Yeah, but even when we dewatered that lagoon to try and get to winter mode out there. So we basically have to get the wet lagoon down to allow for all the backwash to go in over the winter. When we dewatered that, it seems like there's some sludge that might have been in there for 5 years built up on the bottom of that lagoon, thick, heavy sludge. So that's the idea of getting the mixer in there too, to help get that stuff mixed in to the process and get a better process out there, no matter what we need to do the mixing, no matter what our alternative option is. That's where we're at. And Fred and Jonathan, if you have any other comments, feel free, but I don't want to speak for you guys as far as operations.
Yeah, I would like to add something. The lagoons are definitely undersized and there's not enough of them. And I can't say enough about the efforts between our staff and Jason's input regarding this. It's been crucial and time is of the essence. He's been a great resource for us and we've all worked together towards a solution. So my 2 cents, and I don't want to step out of line here, but it's regarding his time, I could tell you that Jason and I sometimes talk 2-3 times a day about these issues every day. And I know he's available to me and my staff anytime we need him, after hours. So if that helps you, the board, make a decision as far as his time and applying his time towards the water utility, I can say it's been crucial to us in getting through this time. We're walking a tightrope with this sludge management process. We are at a point now we have to, I would encourage the board to make that, to take these recommendations based on what our findings are. So, just want to thank him again and just let you know that he is working with us and we're dealing with it. And it's been going well internally for us. So.
And I would reiterate that Fred has brought a lot of resources to bear at no cost to the town on this as well. Like I said, Greg Parks has been a wealth of information and at no cost to us. So,
On a side note, Jason, too, just to address the board, another recommendation of Jason's to our staff was, hey, we should solicit more pricing to clean out the pack tank, for example. And we took that, and as a result, it looks like the board may save 8,000 to 10,000 this year just in the remediation of the pack tank, that clean out and removing other chemicals. I mean, so there's a lot of great back and forth and input, both from Jason and our team, but again, because of him just thinking kind of out of the box, we kind of saved some money. It's been a good working relationship for us. So I just hope the board finds some comfort in that. So.
Thank you, everyone. That's extremely encouraging. I appreciate it. And if I could just make a motion.
One more quick question.
Oh, sure.
When the GAC comes in, how is that going to be affected by, or how is the sludge going to be affected by that? Are we looking at the same amount, more or less?
there shouldn't be any real additional sludge. They said there'll be some minor backwash out of the GAC, but not a huge volume of backwash sludge from that. It's just backwash. The backwash from there is a much more smaller volume of
it's removing a soluble form, so it doesn't generate that much more.
Okay, no, I was just curious to make sure that if we're going on this road, that we're getting an appropriate size container.
Yeah, we can always. The nice part is we can always buy more. That's honestly the great part about these roll-offs is if we needed to get 4 roll-offs, we could get 4. But it'll be interesting. The biggest goal is, the great part about this company too is they will work with us to fine tune our polymer and all that as part of this process. So even more than Greg, they're really experts in the polymer feed process for alum sludge specifically. So it hopefully it'll be a learning curve for all of us here as to the right way to process sludge out back.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion that we approve the sludge recommendations as outlined in Jason's presentation.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you guys for all your.
Yeah, thank you. GAC update.
So I sent out the thing today. I know it's short notice, but it's going to be Zoom next week. If people are available for the meeting to just kind of do a kickoff. And then the in-person meeting will be the week of March 7th. So if people can check their calendars and get back, that would be awesome.
That's great.
That's good.
Beechwood Street water main. So I sent out that proposal this morning. I think it's worth executing for the design and survey and design and construction services on this. We solicited quite a few requests on this, and this is a very, very aggressive price for this process. So we feel very comfortable with this, and we do it under the engineering budget that's currently in place. The goal would be to be out to bid and starting construction in summer of 2022 on Beechwood Street.
This summer. And what was the price again?
Survey was 4, design 9, construction 10, so 18 grand to get us to July 1st.
I think it's a good idea. Lee, how do you feel?
Yeah.
Okay, I make a
As
motion.
long as
that-
we have the money.
Brenda, we have that money in engineering, correct?
We have 32,000 currently in there.
Okay.
All right, I'll make a motion that we approve the Beechwood Street water main project as Jason has just outlined.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
I'm also working with our vendors similar to Elm Street due to supply chain issues to get the pipe ordered. for delivery. It's a 6-month lead time. So we're going to get the 3 quotes, and the good part will be, I mean, the only hesitation I have is if capital budget for some reason denies the request, I'll have a PO in place for 1,900 feet of ductile iron pipe that we'll have to find a way to pay for when it comes in July 1st or after July 1st. So I don't think we'll have an issue, but maybe maybe we hold off on signing the PO till after that meeting with them. And if they give us positive feedback and approval, then order the pipe the next day. If we don't order, the problem is if we don't order, Beechwood Street's going to be a remove and replace, so there'll be bypass piping, and bypass piping does not agree with November, December construction. It'll freeze. So we really need to hit the ground running on Beechwood Street to get it done before it starts getting cold. So that's why I wanted to make sure we have the pipe in place.
Okay. And how about 390 CJC Highway? Anything new?
The only update is they paid their water connection fees, and Brenda billed them for this quarter water.
Okay, and then on 505.
508,
508, Chief Justice Cushing Highway.
I've been playing phone tag with Rich Henderson on that one, and we're just on hold until we get the paperwork and that done.
Okay. In my last conversation with Rich Henderson, he seemed to suggest that the owner was not using the storage building at this time.
Yeah.
Is that your understanding?
That's what I've
Jason?
heard too, yes, but
Yeah. So I think that kind of alleviates the time pressure, because that's what we're really concerned with, is the storage building and the use of it.
Yeah.
I mean, if he was using it on a daily basis, then I think it'd be more time sensitive, but my understanding is just not being used.
and then I don't know what the update on Blizzard of 2020 is, but I believe that it's definitely not me. Oh, Lee, you're on
Okay,
mute.
Lee?
You're muted, Lee.
Yes. A question about 390. You sent that thing from Concom about them, about the sewer. Are they going to be starting the sewer?
They have to get approval first.
Okay. The notice of intent. So that was all that was. Okay, the Blizzard 2020. That was to thank Brendan and Connor for all the work that they did and the hours they put in to keep us up and running and everything cleared out. Because I ran into Connor, he had been working 28 hours by then.
Wow.
So
Wow.
that is what the Blizzard 2020 is about.
I thanked them when I
Awesome.
came in that I didn't
But-
slide down the hill.
Yeah.
Yes. That was to give the Woodard and Curran staff kudos for outstanding above and beyond.
Oh, great. I didn't know that. So thanks for bringing it up, and thank you everyone for your hard work. Lee, are there any meeting notes that we should approve?
Yes, there are the last two. What are the dates here, Brenda?
I don't have it in front of me.
January 11th. To approve.
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Okay, and what was the other one? Was it, Brenda, what was the other date?
24th?
24th, January 24th to approve meeting
25th.
notes. 25th. Do you second that?
Second,
All in favor?
aye.
Aye.
And the-
One other note,
Yeah.
can I just put in? I sent that
Sure.
spreadsheet out of the in-house budget calculator to try and help clarify Ralph and the other board, the capital budget board members of how we're paying for things. Did anybody have any comments on that or concerns?
I really didn't get a chance to look it over in detail.
Okay.
Maybe we'll look at it, Lee, because we're gonna be having another meeting to just, the last item I think is indirect costs. And so we can
Mhm.
discuss that when we discuss indirect costs.
But it's more just the idea of their biggest concern is covering capital costs. So it's some of it is the projections and to Ralph's point, I mean, it's the real difficulty in the projections and in trying to reproject based on last year. It's like Lee said, it's the first year of having a third tier. We don't really have any data other than they used 10 years worth of data to develop the 5-year projection. So there was 10 years worth of people using third tier water in the assumptions, but we're really not going to Lee's point, we're really not going to know until probably 2 years in if tier 3 is generating more or less or the same amount as projected in the process. We are currently meeting it based on what we're seeing from this year in income from user charges. So I guess you could say that by that definition that it worked for a year. But that's their biggest concern. And so the spreadsheet, maybe I'll send it to you, Ralph, if you want to take a look at it. This spreadsheet that I developed, I had sent it to Brian Host just for his feedback too. Because I do want it to be understandable, more understandable than the rate study was. It's all broken down by our spending and not just lumped in spendings. It's for legal fees, the whole 9 yards are in there. So it shows when we're paying cash for things, when we're borrowing, how the borrowing is being allocated, when we're using retained earnings to pay for projects. All that's in the spreadsheet now.
Thanks. I appreciate that, Jason.
So I basically, what I did, Ralph, just so you know, is I took the data from the rate study and I formatted it so everybody in town that's been looking at water budgets for 50 years understands the numbers and what they mean. And Dawn also massaged it for me to help with some of the future spending issues in it too. So we're hoping that it's a fully open spreadsheet too, so you can go through this like 5 tabs with all the projections in them. So you can go tab by tab and see how it sums up onto the front page. So I had to break out my engineering economic book to do my linear projection of future costs. So everything's in there, and it's a nice. I said to Michelle that the tab that's for water capital, you guys should honestly consider putting into your capital. I took your capital spreadsheet and I made it so that if you say you're borrowing, it projects it for 20 years into it. So it's an interesting look at capital. So, but I'll send it to you too, Ralph. So if you have any comments, it's a work in progress. I'll tell you that, but at least it's based on the rate study and hopefully in a little bit more consumable manner.
Okay, well, I appreciate that.
Great work,
Okay.
Jason and Don. I'm
well,
working on
Jason,
that.
Yep.
Yeah, because I know talking about the rate study and the tier 3, because that was my concern about it was the people who had the leaks. And I know that we got that huge leak on Highland Ave that was $11,000. So, this is one thing I had about it, but I had a question. I noticed in your other version of it that for expenditures, you started increasing every expenditure by 2.5%.
Yeah, because that's what we did in the
Every
rate
year?
study.
Oh, okay.
So I just carried the assumptions we did in the rate study. Again, Lee, those projections are just for the purpose of showing the capital budget that we're assuming there's an increase. We all know
Okay.
that every year we look at the budget and determine what each one of those lines might be. Last year we projected a 2.5% increase, and we held the 2.5% in the budget, but we happened to increase sludge by 20%, but held everything else at 0% increase. So that's where you guys come in on a yearly basis and determine where that 2.5% increase on expenses goes. We just project it evenly across all of them. And
Okay,
then
thanks
when
for
the
that
year comes, you allocate it how you feel you need to based on trends. So we can't really trend anything more than, I mean, unless we're going to make some assumption that's something's going to go up by 10% every year. We have to assume everything goes up by 2.5% because we don't want to increase rates more than 2.5%. So we assume our expenditures will increase by 2.5%. And then in 23, you decided we should increase sludge. So by increasing sludge by more than 2.5%, we level funded other things or we decreased other things. So that's where you get into the minutia of, yes, is it projected? Yes. Is it going to be what the actual budget is in 24? Probably not. I would say highly unlikely that those lines are going to be the exact same in 24 as they are in the spreadsheet. But the end total expenditure goal will be the bottom line expenditure of for 2024, we have an expenditure of $2.8 million. Our goal would be to be at $2.8 million. How you get there, you may increase a line, you may decrease a line. That's when we deal with in 2024. But as far as we're concerned, as far as this projection is concerned, we just increased everything by 2.5%.
Yeah,
We
well,
have to
no,
do
that was the
something.
question I had. Thank you.
Yeah, so that's the concept is everything goes up by 2.5%, but then we adjust. And so the goal, the nice part about the spreadsheet, if you change those numbers and you make them actuals, it'll then project those actuals by 2.5%. So if you level fund engineering, then the next year in that projected spreadsheet, engineering will be increased by 2.5% from the actual, not my projected budget.
Okay, well, I think this has been a very productive meeting. I thank everyone. Ralph, I really appreciate you attending. Thank you. And I'm going to make a motion that we adjourn at 11:37.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.